Welcome to the Bantu Sun presented by the Bantu Sun. I'm your host, Brandon. And today we're going to get in the other side of geopolitics, the underlying P part of geopolitics, the political side, and talk about the fundamentals of geopolitical software. So, unlike the hardware, which are God-given and immutable, our software and hardware, of course, if you haven't listened to the episode, we're talking about navigable rivers. We're talking about bread basket, easy access to your bread basket. How are you feeding your population? Talking about our natural harbors, artificial if it must be, flat land for easy, cost, affordable infrastructure and transportation, and natural barriers, of course, deserts, mountains, jungles, and forests. On the software side of things, we're going to get right into it. And we have 4 software to go along with our 5 hardwares of geopolitics. So on the software side, first and foremost, political unity matters, right? When we look at when the world changed most dynamically, going back to the year 1500, a year which we reflect on a lot at the Bantu Sun because it was what the Europeans did, and it's not even Europe, and actually that's a shame as well, is that there's different parts of Europe. If you haven't bought our jigsaw puzzle, please check that out. We go into the different areas and regions of Europe, but it was the countries along the Atlantic seaboard. There's no coincidence that it's those countries that had the most presence globally. Now, these countries weren't the biggest countries. They didn't have the most people, but what they did was they consolidated quick, and they had easily exploitable hardware because of their geographic location. So political unity allowed them to go to other places which had more people, more land, and pretty much defeat those other places. India is a behemoth. Indonesia, a behemoth. The Aztec Empire, a behemoth. But the countries on that Western European seaboard, they were smaller, unified, common interests, and they were able to exploit things faster. One of the reasons, go back and look at the Mexican-American War. Mexico were larger than the United States at the time, but the United States had consolidated politically prior to Mexico. So the United States was already running when Mexico was starting to crawl. All right, moving down the list. Number 2, culture. Culture is destiny, right? And what I mean by that is your culture is as good as the purpose you're using it for. If I wanted to be a great dancer, I need to have a culture of a great dancer. I have to get my exercise in. I have to get my training to practice. I have to challenge myself by doing performances, etc. I got to have the proper gear. But what I'm saying is I'm in that mindset. Like I'm in that lifestyle to be a great dancer. Now what we're talking about is geopolitics. So what matters for geopolitical culture? Industriousness, energy. And it's not just about that, but it has to be done in an effective way. I met a lot of people in my life that work hard, right? But can you work hard profitably? As we go back referencing Papua New Guinea and the food gathering, they were working hard, extremely hard, just to survive, subsistence farming, just to feed themselves. They were working hard, but were they working efficiently? Did they have the tools or the hardware, software that allowed them to not only survive, but to flourish? So culture, you need energy is a big one, and an industriousness. Moving on to the next one, I do want to call out a market economy. And the reason why a market economy is so important, and I'll even put it as free market economy, but the reason why it's so important is you need to incentivize the everyday man, right? And that's what ownership does. When you say, okay, if you sacrifice for this, if you win, you get the returns. And people are happy if you say, hey, if you fail, you get the returns. They're okay with taking their lot from my life experiences. Long as you hold up your end of the bargain. If I win, I get to keep my winnings. And if I lose, I'll accept my defeat. So, and the reason why that's important is because a lot of the energy, it comes from people that have to be able to strive to achieve something. And this goes back to communism. If there's anybody that is down on communism, it's this guy. Nearly every major genocide, mostly it was done on a government scale because only government has that ability to operate at that level. But I'm talking about Soviet Union, China, and the number they did in Cambodia. All tragic cases. And don't get me wrong, other countries have done horrible things, but these were governments to their own people. But what happened is you disincentivize the individual. So when it was time to turn China around, Deng Xiaoping, what he did was they started allowing the farmers to take ownership. They started creating these economic opportunity zones. And bam, next thing you know, China's an animal. Again, they allow the people to benefit from their own efforts. And when the government comes in, and the heavier they are, the more they take the reward, it's like taking the oxygen out of a fire. It's smothering. So there is a balance to this, of course. You can't just run amok in a very nonchalant way within the free market. Legal system is important. Everybody has to understand what is a fair rule. Because like I said, everybody's willing to take their lot from my life experiences. But you need to incentivize the individual because it's not going to be one or two people. This is the rising tide. The rising tide is the people. And if everybody is on code, everybody's got their energy, everybody's trying to build something, create something, because it's in the blood and they know they're going to get rewarded for it. That's why it's part of the culture. They want to take advantage of it. After the market economy, I want to talk about this last point, which is demography. And demography is a big one. I think it's a Peter Zion book where he actually goes through and talks about how important demography is and the aging of a people and their lifespan. Because you can't pop out a 35-year-old. You can't pop out a 20-year-old. These adults have to grow. And they have certain roles within the economy. You know, if you're younger, you're more working out a deficit. You accumulated little to no capital. You're pretty much working off of consumption and you're using your labor to make that up. Whereas if you're older, you're a little bit more thrifty, you have a lot of capital, and based off of demographics, how old people are and how they're allocating their saved up capital, that can put a nation through different phases of an economic whirlwind. But it's also the numbers. Going back to America, exceptionism on this aspect. You don't see 300 million people making the kind of money in a wealthy nation like the United States. It's very rare. Population-wise, America's between Indonesia and India, depending on what statistics you're looking at. India is on their way to the top, but that's pretty much the order, right? China, India, US, and Indonesia for now. And that's set to change, right? China's population is going to fall off a cliff. India is just going to explode. Not a good thing or bad thing. Either way, just is what the numbers are looking like at this point. So if you look at all those GDP per capita, the output per individual, you'll see that America, GDP per capita, is in multiples of those other three countries, which is around it. Reason why is because it's very hard to get a lot of people, the more people are given that higher quality of life, because you need the resources, you need the culture, all these software things, as well as the hardware. So you look at a country like India, which is pretty much like a third the size of continent, like of the United States. The U.S. is a massive country. So India, you have a fraction of the land with like 3 to 4 times the population. So you have to be able to have the resources, the hardware available, as well as the software. Because if you're not incentivizing people and letting them know what they make, they keep, people may try to go to the black market, etc., to earn their living. And so those are our 4 softwares: political unity, culture, relatively free economics, and demographics. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think we got them all? Do you think we missed some? I'll be interested to hear that. Thank you for joining us. That's my Bantu Sense. Bantu up.